You're standing in an open patch of land. Mud clings to your fingers. The back of your shirt has dried stiff with salt from your own sweat. There's no house here. No walls. No roof. No door to open. Just a few crooked wooden stakes driven into the ground, and a stubborn thought in your head that won't go away. You're going to build a home, not be given one, not inherit it, not rent it or borrow it or buy it with silver you don't have. No, you will take trees and dirt and fire, and from them carve out a place in the world that says, quietly but firmly, I exist. And tonight is the first night you'll sleep inside the house you built yourself. The roof is itchy. The walls smell faintly of manure. Your eyes still sting from smoke. But your breath is steady. Your shoulders are low. The wind doesn't get in anymore. So, before you lie back and let the day finally end, take a moment to settle in. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the soil-stained boots of a medieval peasant, someone who built their own house, not out of luxury, but necessity. No power tools, no blueprints, just time, muscle, and a quiet kind of determination that hummed through the bones. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now, where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You had been walking this land for weeks, not far. Just the same patches of slope and mud and bramble, over and over again, measuring with your feet, with your gut, with the bend of your knee when you crouch down to press your palm to the ground. The best land is already taken, has been for generations, by lords, by bishops, by names you'll never see in person. That's not the land you're after. You're looking for something different. Not ownership, permission. Or if not permission, then obscurity. A place not important enough for anyone to notice. Somewhere close to water, but not too close to flood. Somewhere on the edge of the forest, but not inside it. Somewhere no one cares about, until you make it worth caring about. Eventually, you find it. A rise of ground dry enough to stay solid even after rain. Not so stony that your shovel bounces back at you. Not so soggy that it turns your floor into a pigsty. Nearby, a skinny stream. Behind, the tree line. You count 5 hazels, 2 young oaks, a rowan, and what might be elder. It's not a kingdom, but it's yours. At least for now. You press a stake into the ground, gently, like a prayer, then another, then a rope between them, drawing a crooked rectangle in the dirt. This will be your house, not big, 15 by 20 feet if you're lucky. Just enough for 1 room, 1 hearth, 1 family, maybe a goat, maybe chickens. But that's later. For now, it's only lines in the earth and an ache in your hands that you pretend isn't worry. The forest waits behind you like a wolf with its teeth hidden. It has everything you need. It also doesn't belong to you. That first night you sleep under the stars, next to the plot. The air smells like moss and wet bark. There are sounds, distant things, a rustle in the leaves, a snapping twig, the sudden hoot of something alive and watching. You pull your cloak tighter. There is no fire yet, no walls to hold it in, only breath and dark, and a small hope that you won't be chased away come morning. You dream of rafters. You dream of a roof and a door, and a floor that doesn't shift when you move. In the morning, you wake stiff, dew on your lips. You rise, rub your eyes, and take your first real step toward building the rest of your life. It begins not with tools, but with knowing the rules, not written ones, whispered ones, passed down, half true, but half necessary. Don't cut oak in spring. It bleeds too much. Don't take wood that leans east. It splits. Don't let your first cut be at night. It invites fire. You carry those rules with you as you step into the trees. You carry a small axe. It was your father's, and his father's. The wood is damp underfoot. The path is more animal than human. You count every step. When you find the right tree, straight, young, not too proud, you lay your hand on its bark like greeting a neighbor. Then you raise your axe. The first strike echoes, and with it comes the knowledge. You're not borrowing this wood, not asking, just taking, quietly, before anyone notices. Your breath gets shorter with every swing, not from guilt, but from labor. You forget the cold. Your hands blister before you realize it. When the tree groans, you feel it in your chest. When it falls, it takes a part of the sky with it. Now the real work begins. You drag the log out yourself. No cart, no beast, just a rope around your waist, and your boots sinking deeper into mud than you'd like. You slip once, laugh even, but when you finally reach the clearing, the rectangle marked by stakes, it feels different now. Not empty, not imagined. The tree you felled lies beside it, real, solid, a promise kept. You rest. Not long, just enough to drink the cold water from your palm and feel the burn in your shoulders. Above, the clouds begin to gather. Even the sky seems to know. You're building something now, and it will take everything you have. But tonight, just tonight, you press your palm to the dirt where your hearth will one day be, and you whisper, "Stay," and something in the ground listens. The next morning, the mud is still soft from the rain that fell in the early hours, not heavy enough to soak you, just enough to slick your boots and make the logs more stubborn than usual. The cut on your hand from yesterday has stiffened. You wrap it in a strip of cloth torn from an old tunic, tie it tight, and ignore the sting. There isn't time to fuss. There's still half a forest to coax home. You've started a small pile at the edge of your plot. 2 lengths of oak, one still too green to use. A bundle of hazel branches, with the bark peeling back like paper. Some are too thin, others too warped, but they'll find their place in the lattice. Nothing will go to waste. That's the first rule you learned without anyone saying it aloud. The forest isn't empty. It hums with things you can't see. Birds with ragged cries, foxes slipping through the underbrush, the dull rustle of leaves even when the wind is still. But it's the human sounds that make your ears twitch. An axe far off, a cough, hoofbeats that pause, then fade. You're not the only one harvesting, and not all of them are as quiet as you try to be. You stick to the lesser-known paths, ones that twist sideways and dip into gullies thick with fern and bramble. You move fast when you spot a tree worth taking, not because you're careless, but because you're being watched. The trees are witnesses, and so are the lords who claim them. You're not technically allowed to cut living wood. That's the law. Dead wood for fires, yes. Twigs and fallen branches, no one blinks. But when your axe bites into the flesh of a young tree and brings it to its knees, you're doing something closer to theft, even if the tree was no use to anyone until you gave it purpose. There are stories of hands being chopped off, of fines so high they leave families in debt for generations. You tell yourself that won't be you, that you're careful, that what you're doing is for shelter, not greed. But still, when you hear footsteps, you freeze. And when the forest goes too quiet, you move. Most of the wood you need lies within a mile or two of your sight. Any farther, and dragging it becomes a losing battle. The logs are heavier than you'd imagined, not just in weight, but in resistance. They fight back, snagging on roots, sinking into puddles, turning your arms into aching cords and your breath into steam. Eventually, you get clever. You fashion a crude sledge from two curved limbs and lash the logs on top with rope. It still feels like dragging a dead ox, but at least it slides. You learn which trees to avoid, which slopes not to climb. You stop trying to move too much at once. 3 logs a day is enough, anymore, and your back might not forgive you. In the evenings, you sleep beside the wood pile, not out of comfort, but protection. You've worked too hard to let someone else come and take what you gathered. It wouldn't be theft. Not really. Just a faster version of the same desperation. There's a moment, 2 days in, when you nearly give up. A log rolls the wrong way down a hill. It lands in a marshy dip and sinks halfway before you can grab it. You kneel in the mud and pull. It doesn't move. You curse. The kind of quiet curse that tastes like metal in your mouth. You press your forehead to the bark. For a long while, you just sit there, mud to your elbows, the sky leaking mist. And then, slowly, you start digging around it with your bare hands. Bit by bit, you free it. Not because you want to, but because no one else will. And that's the whole truth of it. No one else will. You think of your father's hands, how they were calloused in the same places, how he built a barn from nothing but timbers and spit and the help of 3 stubborn brothers. You think of the one nail he kept in his pocket until the day he died. A reminder, he used to say, of what it cost and of what was saved. You carry that same weight now. Your neighbors, those you trust, begin to take notice. One of them, an older man with a knee that never healed right, offers you his son for a day. He's got arms, the man says, shrugging. Might as well put them to use. You nod, say thank you, mean it. The boy is young, silent, fast. He doesn't complain, even when the rope burns his palms. That night, you give him a bit of hard cheese and let him sleep by the fire. He's asleep before he finishes chewing. You begin working in pairs more often. A cousin, a widow from the next hamlet whose son needs a place to apprentice. You don't pay them, but you feed them, and you promise, when their time comes to build, you'll be there too. The woodpile grows, slowly, unevenly, like a lopsided spine rising from the edge of your plot. It's ugly, but it's yours. Some of the timber needs seasoning. You prop it up off the ground with stones, let the wind run through it, let the sun do what it can. You turn the logs by hand. Watch for signs of rot, sniff for sap. One night it rains, and you scramble to cover the wood with scraps of cloth and brush. You're soaked through, but the wood stays dry. That feels like a win. It's around this time that you begin talking to the wood. Not words, exactly. More like thoughts shaped into breath. You call one log left shoulder and another backbone. You know which ones will form the base, which will become the walls, which will hold the roof. You don't name them out loud, but you know. And they know you too. You dream of them standing, holding each other in place, becoming lines instead of piles, a shape instead of a plan, a home instead of a heap. You don't draw anything. You just see it, with your eyes open or shut. You can already walk through it in your mind, 1 step from the doorway to the hearth, 2 paces to where your daughter might one day sleep, a shelf where the knife will hang, a hook for your belt, a bench near the fire, A line of pegs for drying herbs, the small shutter for light, the angled beams that won't creak because you'll drive the pegs in tight, tight as your fingers can manage. It's coming together now, not all at once, but steadily, daily, like breath, like bread, like belief, and soon, very soon, it'll be time to lift the bones of the house into place. And when that day comes, you'll need help. Not just muscle, but trust. Because raising a home isn't something you do alone. No one ever did. Not really. The morning you raise the frame, the sky is pale and thin, like a piece of wool stretched too far. There's no sun, just a soft, even light that makes everything feel quiet and suspended. That's a good sign. No heat, no glare, no sudden downpour. The kind of weather that doesn't get in the way. You wake early, before the birds, wash your face with cold stream water, tie back your hair, check the knots on the sledge. You don't say much, just move. The day's been marked in your mind for weeks. Every log dragged, every beam trimmed, every mallet swing has led to this moment. Your stomach's in knots, but your hands are steady. That helps. By the time the first neighbor arrives, you've already laid out the heavy timbers. The longest beams, the ones that will form the skeleton of the house, lie side by side in the dirt like sleeping giants. You run your hand along one, rough, pitted, strong. It'll do. They come in small groups. Your cousin and his eldest boy, the old woman who lent you her ladder, the same silent lad who helped haul logs 2 weeks ago, now with his brother in tow. By mid-morning, a dozen people stand in your clearing. Some talk, some laugh. Most just wait. Raising the frame isn't something done lightly, not just because of the weight, but because it marks the moment your house stops being an idea and starts being real. From now on, people will remember you have a roof, or will, soon. They'll look to you as someone settled, someone who belongs. You've seen a house frame collapse before, 3 summers back in the next village. Too few hands. A rope snapped, a boy broke his shoulder, and the beam cracked in 2. That's not going to happen today. You've planned too carefully. You begin with the holes. Deep ones, 2 feet at least. You dug them last night by firelight, checking their spacing with a length of cord knotted at intervals. You widened them this morning, testing the bottoms with your heel. Stones at the base, to drain water and keep rot away. You guide the first post into place yourself. It's heavy, thicker than your thigh. You brace it with a small rock, then call over 2 others. Together, you lift. The post rises slowly, tipping up from the ground like a lever pulled by invisible hands. Your back screams, your palms slip, but the post sinks into its socket with a soft thud. It stands, crooked at first, then straightens as you wedge in flat stones and tamp the earth down hard around it. The others follow. One by one, a forest of posts rises around you. You don't notice how loud everyone's breathing has gotten until someone, maybe the baker's youngest, lets out a sharp laugh after the 6th post stands firm. It breaks the tension. More laughter follows. Someone claps you on the shoulder. You smile, but your eyes flick to the next beam. Still so much left to do. Then come the joints. You've spent hours carving each mortise and tenon, the square hole in one beam, the square tongue in another. They look like puzzle pieces, but they're more than that. They're a kind of promise that if shaped right and fitted with care, they'll hold. For years, maybe longer than you'll live, with the posts standing, the next task is the crossbeams. You raise them carefully, slowly, with ropes and poles. One person pulls, another guides, two more steady the ladder. It takes 5 of you to hoist the first long beam to shoulder height, 10 to lift it over your head, and only 1 to shout "hold, hold" when it slips and threatens to fall. You drive in a peg, a tree nail, the size of your thumb. It's oak, dry and tapered. You hammer it through the joint, where post meets beam. The sound is solid, final, like knocking on a door that wasn't there before. The pegs swell in wet weather, tightening the bond. You like that. That nature itself helps hold your house together. By midday, the frame is half done. You share bread and onion with the others. Someone brings beer. It's thin, but cold. It goes down fast. No one eats much, not because they're not hungry, but because the weight of what's left still looms in your shoulders. You've saved the biggest timbers for the roof. Ridge beam first, then rafters. They'll shape the pitch, give the house its character. Tall, sloping, sharp, steep enough for water to run off fast, shallow enough not to lose heat. You've spent nights lying awake, imagining the angle. It takes nearly everyone to lift the ridge beam. 2 men climb onto makeshift scaffolding. You feed the beam up slowly, heaving it rung by rung until it rests across the top posts. The whole frame shudders once, but holds. There's silence for a moment, not fear, just awe. The shape of the house is suddenly clear. It looks right, like it was always meant to be there. Rafters next, lighter but trickier. They must match each other, mirror perfect. You've marked them carefully. A faint crosshatch where each notch should sit. Still, they need coaxing. A twist here, a mallet tap there. You work slowly, deliberately. You don't want to rush this part. You don't want to be the one who says good enough and regrets it in the first storm. By the time the last rafter goes in, the light is fading. The clearing is full of sawdust, boot prints, and quiet pride. The others begin to leave, not abruptly, but gradually. A nod here, a squeeze of the shoulder, a murmured, "You'll sleep warm soon." You thank them all. Promise you'll be there when it's their turn. Your back aches, your hands are raw, your stomach growls. But you don't want to lie down yet. Instead, you walk beneath the frame. Trace your fingers along the timbers. Smell the fresh sap still clinging to the joints. You look up through the rafters, where the sky bleeds soft pink between the beams. A hawk passes overhead, wings cutting the light. The wind blows through the structure, not harshly, but like a breath. Like the house itself is breathing now. You sit on a stump near what will be the door. Watch the shadows lengthen. Feel the ache in your bones settle into something quieter, something steadier. Tomorrow you'll begin the walls. But tonight, your house has bones, and they're standing tall. That night, sleep comes quickly. Not because your body isn't sore, it is. Or because the ground is soft, it isn't. But because there's a kind of calm that settles in your chest when something stands. When what you've imagined for months has shape and shadow and weight. You fall asleep next to the frame, beneath open rafters that catch the starlight like crooked fingers. No roof yet, but the sky feels different now, like it's no longer pressing down on you, but waiting. By dawn, you're already moving. The next stage is messier, less dramatic than raising beams, but more intimate. This is where the house starts to feel like a home, because you're filling it in. You're closing the gaps. You're giving the wind a reason to stay outside. The walls don't begin with bricks. They begin with sticks. Hazel, mostly, or willow if you can find it. Long, bendable, fibrous branches that you harvested weeks ago and left to soften in the shade. You stack them nearby, bundled and waiting, like quiet helpers. Waddling, they call it. You start with one bay between two posts. From the ground up, you weave the branches in and out, over, under, flexing them gently, pressing them close. It's like making a basket, only taller, and for people. Your fingers remember the pattern before your mind does. The work is slow, but rhythmic. The structure grows like a kind of spider web, catching light between the gaps. You get better with each section. Find the branches that want to bend. Toss the ones that crack. Sometimes you whisper to them, a habit you don't even notice at first. When one splinters in your hand, you mutter, "Easy now, I needed you. You don't work alone." Your wife joins you by mid-morning. She brings a pot of barley broth and 2 flat loaves, wrapped in a cloth that still smells of the hearth. She watches for a while, then picks up a bundle of rods and begins weaving without asking for instruction. She's faster than you. Neater, too. The rows sit tighter under her hands. You don't mind. You trade places now and then. One of you cooking, one weaving. When the neighbors' children wander by, curious, your wife hands them small sticks and lets them try. Their laughter echoes through the skeleton of the house. It bounces off beams and settles into the corners like future memories. By midday, you've filled half the bays. The waddling looks fragile, like it could snap in a strong wind. But you know what's coming next, and so do your arms, which are already bracing for it. The daub. It's not a pretty mixture, but it works. Clay soil, dug from the riverbank, sand, hauled in sacks from a low rise to the east, chopped straw, the kind pulled from last season's thatch pile, and the secret ingredient, dung. Cow, mostly. A little pig if you've got it. Not fresh. That's too wet. You need the stuff that's halfway to earth again. Crumbly, dark, and surprisingly inoffensive once mixed. You toss it all into a shallow pit and start stomping. Barefoot, because boots slip. The mixture squelches up between your toes, warm and sticky and utterly medieval. You laugh despite yourself. It's impossible not to. Your wife joins in. The children are already in. They splash and giggle and flail, turning the whole thing into a festival of filth. But soon, the fun becomes labor. You gather the daub in handfuls. Thick, wet, dense. Then, you slap it onto the wattled panels from both sides. One person inside, one outside, pressing it through the gaps, letting it meet in the middle. You smooth it with your palm, your forearm, even the back of a wooden spoon. There's no perfect way. You just feel it. The daub holds. It clings to the sticks like it was born to. As it dries, the straw locks into the clay. The sand prevents cracks. And the dung, well, that's the glue. You do this all day. By sunset, the air smells like earth and sweat and sweet, half-rotted straw. You're covered in it. It's in your hair, behind your ears, under your nails. But the walls stand. Not finished. Not yet. They'll need time to dry. Weeks if the weather's kind. Longer if it's wet. You walk the perimeter. Touch the rough surface. You press your cheek against one panel. It's cool. Firm. Already hardening. Your wife paints a small swirl into the still wet daub with her finger. A charm, she says, against fire. You don't argue. You make another beside hers, a crooked S for your son's name. She smiles. Later, you sit by the fire, backs against one another. You eat slowly, quietly. The kind of quiet that isn't silence, but trust. The next morning, you whitewash the driest panels. It's not luxury. It's lime and water, mixed into a thin paste. But it matters. The white reflects light inside the house, makes the room feel larger. The lime also keeps bugs away. Mice hate it. So do fleas. And if you're lucky, so do spirits. As the brush glides over the wall, you watch the house change. It brightens, becomes more itself. It's no longer just mud and sticks. It's a barrier, a promise, a skin. You whitewash in long strokes, some straight, some not. Your wife teases you for the lines that drip. You reply that the drips show where water would have come through if you hadn't daubed it so well. She laughs, not because the joke is clever, but because it's yours. By the third day, the walls are nearly complete. A few panels sag and will need patching. One has a crack already forming, but most of them hold. You spend the afternoon patching one corner where the daub didn't quite meet. As you press a fresh handful into the gap, you notice something unexpected. A line of tiny footprints along the base. Chicken, maybe, or cat. You smile. The house has visitors already. That night, the wind rises. It blows through the rafters, but it no longer howls. The walls muffle it, soften it. Inside, the air is warmer, not by much, but enough. You light a small fire in the center, let the smoke drift upward. There's no chimney yet, but the roof isn't in place either. The smoke escapes like breath through parted lips. You sit on the earthen floor, wrapped in a coarse blanket, and watch the flame dance on the whitewashed surface. The walls flicker like memories not yet made. You listen, not for danger, but for something deeper, and in the creak of beams, the faint pop of drying daub, the rustle of straw. You hear it. The house is starting to speak. The next task looms above you, literally. With the walls in place and the frame holding firm, your eyes now lift to the open sky above your rafters. The air has turned colder. Nights nip harder at your fingertips. You've woken more than once this week to a sheen of frost on your blanket. It's time. The house needs a roof. Not just any roof. A thatched roof. It begins, like everything else, with gathering. You walk the old paths again. Shoulders still sore from waddling. But now your eyes look lower. Not up at trees, but down at the golden fields, the marshy edges of streams, and the brittle meadows where tall grasses grow in tangles. You need straw. Lots of it. Not the trampled leftovers from threshing, but long, clean stems, dry and hollow, with heads neatly shorn. You spot a stretch of wheat stubble near the edge of a neighbor's field, and trade 2 evenings of splitting logs for his permission to take it. You cut the stalks with a sickle, bind them into tight bundles with twine made of twisted flax. It's back-breaking. The bundles are awkward, their tips sharp, and your hands sting with tiny cuts by midday. You load them onto your sled and pull them home in small loads. The house watches you arrive with each new stack, its skeleton slowly acquiring hair. You stack the thatch in a dry corner, raised on a rack of branches to keep it from soaking through. Mice already sniff around. You'll have to work fast. You don't thatch alone. It's not a one-person task. It's not even a 2-person task. A thatch roof is a dance, and it takes a team to keep the rhythm. You invite a man named Hamlin, a thatcher from 3 villages over. His fingers are stained the color of wet straw. His eyes are sharp. He speaks little, but when he does, it's in short, crisp instructions. Layer tight. Start low. Bind with sway. Watch your pitch. You listen, carefully, because you know what's at stake. The roof is more than shelter. It's your insulation, your rain shield, your last line of defense when the winds come shrieking from the moors. If it fails, everything underneath it fails too. Hamlin climbs the ladder with surprising grace for a man his age. He shows you how to lay the bundles flat, starting at the bottom edge of the roof line and working upward, like shingles made of grass. The first course sets the tone for the rest. Too loose, and the whole roof will leak. Too tight, and the straw might trap moisture and rot. It's a balance, breadth and boundary, open and sealed. Each bundle is secured with split hazel rods called sways, bent over the thatch like ribs and lashed to the rafters with handmade cords. You twist the straw with your fingers, shaping it, tucking it in like a quilt too big for the bed. Every movement is precise, deliberate, almost ceremonial. As you work, Hamlin hums. Not a song exactly, more like a pattern of sound that helps him keep time. You find yourself matching it without meaning to. The ladder creaks, the straw rustles, the ropes tighten with soft snaps. You breathe through your mouth to avoid inhaling the dust, though soon it fills your throat anyway. You stop, noticing. The roof rises, layer by layer, like sediment building into earth. Each course overlaps the one below it, shedding water downward. Hamlin checks the pitch often. It must be steep enough for rain to run, but not so steep the bundles slide off like tired travelers. At midday, you break for food. Hard cheese, dried pear, a flask of cider. You sit on the ground and look up. Your house is no longer just lines. It has shape, mass, volume. It casts shadow. By the second day, the roof reaches its peak. That final ridge is the hardest part. The angle is awkward, the wind less forgiving. The bundles must be split and folded in a V shape, then pinned tight against each other with double rows of sway. You and Hamlin work side by side, feet dangling off opposite ends of the beam. One gust nearly takes your hat, and your balance with it. You laugh. He doesn't. But later, when the last bundle is laid and the cords cinched tight, he claps you on the back with a palm like dried bark and says, "She'll hold." And she will. That night, you sleep inside, not just beneath beams, but under a roof. The air is warmer. The wind still finds ways in, but not from above. Rain begins just before dawn, a slow patter at first, then heavier. You lie awake, listening to it thrum across the thatch. Not drip, not seep, just drum and fade. For the first time in weeks, your bedding stays dry. The next morning, you find the roof crawling, not with rot, but with life. A bird has already nested in the overhang near the eastern slope. Small brown feathers peek out. Insects explore the ridges. You spot a tiny mouse squeezing into the thatch near the edge. You sigh. It's inevitable. You make a note to patch that gap tomorrow. You know what they say. If you can hear birds before dawn, you've built something worth waking in. Still, not everything about thatch is gentle. You've heard stories. Fires, mostly. One spark from the hearth, and the whole roof could light up like dry leaves. Villages have burned that way, not once, but often. Some towns have banned thatch altogether, forcing wealthier peasants to use tiles or sod. But not here. Here, it's tradition. It's what people know, and it's what you can afford. To help protect the house, you gather bundles of wild rosemary and wormwood and tuck them along the inner edge of the roof. Old folk wisdom says the scent deters pests and invites blessings. Your wife hangs a small iron charm over the doorway. Not for looks, for luck. As the week goes on, you inspect the thatch every day. You run your hands across it, press for soft spots, watch for signs of slippage. When a loose bundle sags, you tighten it with care, speaking to it under your breath like you're calming a spooked animal. You begin to learn its moods. You know when it creaks from settling, and when it whispers warnings in the wind. You know that if the ridge darkens too quickly, rain has gotten in. You know the corners must be watched after a storm. You know where the birds land, where the frost gathers, where the scent of the house is strongest when you step outside at night and the smoke curls up into the dark. That's the moment you know the roof is more than structure. It's presence. It holds not just the house, but the memory of every hand that touched it. Hamlin's steady fingers, your wife's rope-tight knots, your own aching shoulders, and somewhere inside it all, a quiet, sleeping bird. Under that roof, everything feels different now, even silence. With the roof in place and the walls fully daubed and drying, there's one last boundary to finish before the house can truly contain a life: the floor. It's funny, in a quiet way, how long the ground beneath your feet has just been ground. Dirt, trodden and tamped by your boots and the soles of others who came to help. It's been there the whole time, unnoticed, absorbing every spill of sweat and splash of rain. But now it has to become something more. Not just the place you stand, but the surface where you'll eat, sleep, crouch, rise, and raise your children. It has to become part of the house. The earth floor begins with digging. You remove what's loose, shoveling out the top layer to find more compact soil beneath. It doesn't go deep, just enough to flatten it, to create an even bed. You find stones along the way. Some you keep, some you toss. Every root you pull up brings with it the scent of old things: wet bark, bitter clay, mold. Your hands are never clean anymore. You don't expect them to be. When the clearing is done, you bring in your mix. It's a recipe passed in murmurs, not books. Earth from under a collapsed wall where moisture kept it dense, sand from a river bend, ash from your hearth, and a handful of lime if you can get it. And straw, always straw, cut short, just enough to bind it all together. You spread it with wide sweeps of a flat wooden float. Sometimes your hands are better tools, sometimes your feet. You tamp it down with a wooden mallet, rhythmically, like you're drumming a slow heart, over and over again. Not just in rows, but in spirals. You press down on the memory of every footprint you left before and overwrite it with something solid. The mixture smells faintly sweet, like smoke and old bread. And when it dries, it hardens into something almost like stone. Not smooth, not perfect, but dependable. And with just enough give to keep your knees from complaining when you kneel down to tend the fire. As you work, your wife begins laying out the living space, not with furniture, that comes later, but with intention. She scratches lines with a stick to mark where the sleeping platform will be, where the chest will go, where the water jug should sit. You nod as she speaks. Not because you're agreeing, necessarily, but because it feels good to hear someone else see the shape of the life you've built. Together, you build the bed first. A raised platform made from flat boards and heavy beams, lifted off the earth by stone feet to keep it dry. You stuff a sack with straw and spread it out across the frame. It smells like the roof above you. Your daughter lays on it first, just to test. She kicks her feet and grins. "It squeaks," she says. You say, "Good. That way we'll know when someone's sneaking about." Then come the benches, narrow, sturdy, built from the leftover timbers too short for walls and too knotted for roof. You make them by hand. No nails, just dowels and patience. The first one rocks slightly. You wedge a sliver of bark beneath one leg and it settles. A table follows, a simple trestle board, nothing more. Something to eat on, lean on, spill soup across in the middle of winter. You leave it unfinished, the marks of your plane still visible in the grain. Later, your wife will rub it down with oil and a fistful of herbs. But for now, it's enough that it stands. There's little in the way of possessions. You own what you carry. A knife for each of you, a wooden bowl, hand-carved, and a drinking cup you made from a hollowed root. A small pile of linens folded into a chest that smells faintly of beeswax. 3 spoons, 1 for each of you, and 1 more, in case a visitor stays the night. You hang your tools from pegs hammered into the wall beams, the hatchet, the chisel, the saw-toothed blade that carved half the house into shape. Each one finds its place like a breath returning to the body. You think about making a shelf, maybe above the hearth, a place for salt, for dry herbs. For the small clay figurine your daughter insists keeps mice away, light is precious. There are no glass windows, just a small shuttered opening near the door and the wide gap above the threshold. During the day, you push both open to let in sun and air. At night, you rely on the fire. The hearth isn't fancy, just a shallow bowl dug into the floor and lined with flat stones. But it works. You've built it dead center, so the warmth reaches every wall. A tripod above it holds the cauldron. You test it that evening with a stew of lentils, onions, and a pinch of wild thyme. The smell fills the house like memory. Like home, smoke rises lazily through the rafters, slipping through the straw of the roof, curling in ribbons between the beams. Your daughter watches it go, lying on her side, cheeks flushed from the fire. "Where does it go?" she asks. "Up," you say. "Out. To the moon, maybe." She nods like this makes perfect sense. There's no door yet, just a woolen cloth hung from the top beam, cut from an old cloak and weighted at the bottom with stones. It moves when the wind comes through, fluttering like a warning. Still, it feels like a boundary, something that marks the edge between inside and everything else. The house smells alive. A mix of daub, wood smoke, straw, ash, and faintly, lavender from the pouch your wife has tucked beneath the bed. You breathe it all in. It catches in your throat, but you don't mind. It smells like work, like care, like something worth keeping. Before sleep, you walk the edge of the floor once more, pressing your heel into the corners, checking for damp. There's a low spot near the back wall. It gathers water when it rains, you've noticed. Tomorrow you'll patch it with clay and crushed eggshell. It'll hold. You lie down beside your family. The floor is firm beneath your blanket, but not hard. The fire is low, flickering. Shadows move across the whitewashed wall. You count the knots in the beam above your head. 14. No, 15. You close your eyes, and still you see it. The layout, the tools, the flickering red in the hearth. There's nothing more to add tonight. The house is still unfinished. There's always more to do. But for now, you lie on the ground. You made into something better, with your own hands. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like dirt. It feels like yours. The fire burns lower each night now. Not because there's less wood, you've kept up with the gathering, but because the house holds warmth better than you expected. The daubed walls, the low ceiling, the thick thatch overhead. It traps heat, curls it inward. The cold still creeps in under the door curtain, but it no longer bites. It brushes gently, like it's asking for permission. Even so, the fire remains the heart of the house. Everything orbits around it. Meals, talk, silence, sleep. You rise by its warmth and end each day watching its light flicker against the rafters. But tending it is never simple. There are no chimneys, just smoke holes and hope. You've shaped a vent in the roof above the hearth, a clever gap in the thatch lined with clay and smoothed stone. It's not perfect, but it draws enough. The smoke curls upward in thick, slow ribbons, drifting through the golden straw like mist among reeds. Sometimes it escapes cleanly, sometimes it doesn't. On bad days, it pools inside the house like a second weather. You open the shutter and wave it out with your cloak. But most of the time, it behaves. You've learned the rhythm. Small logs first, then peat or dung if it's dry enough. A layer of ash to keep the coals banked overnight. When you get it right, you can wake before dawn, stir the gray heap, and find a single spark still glowing, enough to feed a new flame without flint. It becomes a kind of companionship. The fire is alive. Not wild, like in the stories. No dragon in the hearth. Just steady, needy, warm. You know its moods. When to leave it, when to stoke it, when it's too hot and wants to be left alone. The smoke, too, begins to feel familiar. Less a nuisance and more a scent, part of the house's breath. You can see it on the beams already, the blackening. It begins faint, soft streaks where the smoke lingers. Over time, it deepens, turns the pale wood above the fire to soot and shadow. You run your hand along one of the main supports and come away with a black smear. You should scrub it. You don't. It feels honest. Visitors always comment on the smoke. They blink, wave their hands, cough politely. You smile, say nothing. You don't notice anymore. Or rather, you do, but it doesn't bother you. It's just part of the place. Like the way the floor is always cool in the corner near the water pot, or how the north wall creaks when the wind shifts. You cook most things directly in the fire. There's no oven, no iron stove. Just a three-legged stand for the cauldron, a flat stone for baking, and a handful of clever tricks passed down from mouths, not books. In the morning, porridge, oats if you have them, barley more often. You stir it slowly, watching the steam rise, careful not to scorch the bottom. At midday, root vegetables stewed in whatever broth remains. And always bread. Flat, dense, slightly sour, baked in a covered clay pot, buried in hot ash. The crust burns if you don't turn it. You've burned many loaves. Now, fewer. The fire is more than food and heat. It's your lamp, your clock, your protector. At night, when everything outside the house disappears into wind and dark, the fire stays. It hums low, like an old friend telling stories you already know but still like to hear. You sit close with your wife and daughter, your knees touching. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you don't. The flame talks for you. You carve in the evenings. Nothing fancy. Spoon handles, pegs, a small cup for your daughter's milk. The knife flickers in the light. Wood shavings curl across your lap. Your daughter watches, wide-eyed, the same way she watches the fire, like both are magic. Once, she asks you to carve a figure. A person, she says, small enough to fit in her pocket. You ask who it's meant to be. The house, she answers. You don't laugh. You carve. A tiny figure with arms stretched wide, legs like posts, and a thatch of straw for hair. You burn 2 dots for eyes and press it into her hand. She names it Hollow. No reason. Just does. That night she places it near the hearth before bed. You don't ask why. But you understand. The fire also brings danger. That's the rule. Everything warm can burn. You take precautions. Keep a bucket of water nearby. A pile of sand. You never leave the house without banking the coals or spreading the ashes. You train your daughter, not with fear, but care. Show her where to step, where not to. And still, sometimes you wake in panic, smell nothing, see nothing, but imagine everything: fire in the thatch, sparks in the dark. You reach for your wife, your child, the cup, the door. It passes, but never fully leaves. Your wife braids bundles of herbs and hangs them near the hearth. Mugwort, sage, thyme, old customs, protection, she says. You nod, not because you believe, necessarily, but because she does, and because belief has weight. In the colder months, the hearth becomes your sun. You time your days by its light, rise when it glows, sleep when it dims. You gather around it to mend clothes, dry boots, warm hands. You sit on the low bench and trace stories into the soot with a stick. Your daughter copies them. One day, you find a crooked flower drawn onto the wall in charcoal. She grins when you ask about it. So it feels like spring inside, she says. You leave it there. The fire darkens the ceiling, hardens the floor, warms the walls. But more than anything, it roots you, makes the house feel anchored, lived in, real. Not just a structure, but a body, with breath, with a pulse. On the coldest night of winter, a storm rages outside. Wind claws at the thatch, the door curtain flaps. Snow squeezes through the shutter slats. You crouch close to the fire with your daughter in your lap, both of you wrapped in the same cloak. You hold her tight. Her forehead rests against your chin. The fire pops. You add a log, slowly, gently. You stir the coals, bank the edges. It flares, then settles. Outside, the world howls. Inside, you are warm. Not safe, not entirely, but close. You fall asleep with your cheek against the top of her head, her tiny carved figure still clutched in one hand. The house breathes. The smoke rises, and the fire, that small sun in the middle of your world, burns on. Spring creeps in the way only spring can. Not all at once, but shyly, like it's testing your house for the first time. The frost still bites some mornings, but it doesn't linger. The clay floor stays warmer now. The daub on the north wall has stopped cracking, and the wind no longer groans at the door like an unwanted guest. It hums like it belongs. But you've learned not to trust stillness. The house, though it stands solidly now, is never truly finished. You knew that the moment you hammered the first tree nail into place. Wood shifts, walls settle, mice chew, wind seeps, rain surprises. No matter how well you build, the world always wants to take something back. And so you begin to learn the second half of homekeeping, the keeping. The first sign comes when you notice the daub near the back corner has started to crumble. Just a little. A soft line forming like a wrinkle in skin. You press your thumb to it and feel the surface flake away beneath your touch. Water, maybe. Or dry air. Or both. It doesn't matter. It needs patching. You mix another batch, clay, straw, sand, and just enough dung to make it bind. The smell's familiar now. You don't flinch. Your daughter helps stir with a stick. She treats it like dough, even tries to shape it into little round cakes before you catch her and laugh. You slap the fresh daub onto the wall with a soft squelch. The old meets the new, and for a moment, you can see the difference. Color, texture. But in a few days, it will dry and blend in like it was always there. That's how most repairs go. Quiet, inconspicuous, necessary. A loose peg in the bench, a drip above the sleeping platform, a rat nest discovered under the kindling pile. Nothing catastrophic, just reminders. That time keeps walking, even while you sleep. The thatch needs attention too. You climb the roof slowly, barefoot, careful. and walk the pitch like a tightrope. You press down with your heels, feeling for softness. You find one patch near the east slope where birds have torn away the straw for nesting. It's minor. You press in a fresh bundle and tie it tight with split hazel. You hum while you work, the same tune Hamlin used. The roof seems to recognize it. Below, your wife calls up to ask if you want bread. You nod, even though she can't see it. There's a comfort in that. Some days, you wake to a strange quiet. No birds, no wind, just stillness. Those are the days when something's wrong. One morning, the floor near the water pot has sagged. Not much, but enough that it holds a puddle where none should be. You kneel, scrape it back, find the clay damp and soft. You let it dry for 2 days, then patch it with ash, crushed eggshells, and fresh dirt. You press it flat with the back of your hand. The repair line curls like a scar, but a clean one. There's a saying your wife repeats now and then. A house that's still is a house that's dead, and yours is very much alive. You hear it when you lie awake. The creak of beams as they settle, the rustle of mice in the roof, the scratch of claws on thatch, the soft tapping of water dripping down a daub crack, the sigh of wind through shutter slats. Some people would call it noise. You don't. You call it breathing. You whitewash the walls again in late spring, a fresh layer of lime and water. It goes on milky, dries to soft bone. The room brightens by 3 shades. You can see better now when you sew by the firelight. You can also spot new cracks forming. That's part of the point. The lime shows you where the house is thinning before the rain gets in. The white turns brown in one spot by midsummer. Just a finger-length smear beneath the window ledge. You touch it, rub it, damp, another leak. You fix the shutter, then the wall, then repaint. It becomes a ritual. You learn to listen, not just with your ears, but with your palms. You knock on beams, feel the tone change. Tap the daub, feel its softness or stiffness. Smell the floor after rain. Watch the color of your lime wash. The house speaks in the subtle ways. You just have to answer. Your wife, too, has her own ways. She hangs fresh herbs in the rafters to dry. Mint, marjoram, yarrow. Not just for cooking, but for smell. They crinkle when the wind moves through the thatch. She sweeps daily, using a bundle of birch twigs tied with twine. The floor still kicks up dust, but less than before. Sometimes she scatters meadowsweet across it, especially when guests come. It smells faintly of almonds and earth. It hides the dampness. Your daughter helps her, a little too enthusiastically, and the flowers end up everywhere. You don't mind. The house smells like summer. Even the animals have their share in the maintenance. The chickens scratch along the outer wall, clearing weeds. The goat sleeps near the threshold and occasionally eats whatever dangles too low from the herb rack. A stray cat has taken up residence in the corner behind the woodpile. You haven't chased it out. It catches mice. You patch. You clean. You check the roof after every storm. You mend the bench when it groans under a guest's weight. You reinforce the door beam with an extra wedge when the wind starts testing it again. And yet, through all this care, all this fussing and tending, you never reach a point where the house is done. It doesn't frustrate you. Quite the opposite. It humbles you. This isn't a place you built and walked away from. This is a place you live with. A partner. A quiet, sprawling companion. It weathers with you. Ages with you. Cracks when you crack. Breathes as you breathe. Sometimes Your daughter traces the lines on the daub wall, the patched sections, the uneven joins, the soft dimples where new met old. She asks, "Will it always look like that?" You nod. Yes, but not always in the same places. She presses her cheek against the wall. Feels like skin. You smile. Late one evening, as the wind picks up again and the fire glows red in its pit, you take a moment to walk the house slowly, one lap, inside and out. You touch the beams, the walls, the rafters above the sleeping platform. Your fingers trail across every surface like a blessing. You find a new crack near the west corner. You press your thumb to it. It's small, barely there. You whisper, "I see you. Tomorrow, you'll fix it." Tonight, you let the house rest. And in return, it holds you, as it always has. Not perfectly, not quietly, but completely. It's just past dusk now, and the wind is doing that thing it always does this time of year, slipping through the trees like it's in no hurry at all. A slow breeze, cool and thoughtful, not meant to chill, but to remind you that summer never stays forever. You stand in the doorway of your home, arms folded across your chest, watching the last of the light fall across the fields. Inside, your daughter is humming while she arranges kindling for the night fire. Your wife is folding blankets near the sleeping bench, brushing off stray bits of straw with the side of her hand. It's quiet, but not empty. You don't speak. You don't need to. From this spot, the threshold you carved yourself from a split oak beam, you can see the whole room, and in it, the whole life you've built. The fire pit at the center, ringed with soot-dark stones. The whitewashed walls, a little scuffed now, marked with small handprints and herbs that have dried into soft brown wisps. The sleeping platform, stuffed with fresh straw, pressed smooth. The shelf above the hearth, holding the wooden bowl your wife carved last winter, and the carved figure your daughter still insists protects the house when everyone is asleep. You run your hand along the doorframe. The wood is worn smooth where you grip it most days, going in and out. There's a nick from where the bucket handle swings, another from the time you tried to hang the door just a little too fast. The hinges creak. You never quite fixed that. You never will. That's part of the house, too. This is what it means to dwell, not just to survive in a place, but to press yourself into it, to let your mark sit beside its own. Your sweat in the floor, your soot on the beams, your breath in the rafters. A neighbor passes on the road, leading a slow mule. He lifts a hand in greeting. You nod back. No words, but he knows. He sees the smoke rising through your roof, the clean line of your thatch, the light spilling from the fire inside. He sees what you've made, and he respects it. You step inside, letting the wool curtain fall back across the doorway. The house sighs a little as it closes around you, not like a trap, like an embrace. The warmth gathers fast. It always does now. You can feel it in the floor, radiating up from the tamped clay, in the soft creak of the drying rafters, in the gentle light that flickers across the whitewashed wall. You sit on the bench, running a palm along its edge. You still remember the day it was finished, how it wobbled, how your daughter laughed and called it the dancing seat. It doesn't wobble anymore. The wedge you added underneath holds firm. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to hold. You eat dinner slowly. Barley stew with cabbage, a heel of bread softened in broth, and a cup of ale that's been warmed slightly by the hearth. Your wife adds a pinch of salt, and your daughter tells a story about the cat stealing one of the dried fish from the rafters. You chuckle. The fire pops. The day unravels. Later, you sit with your back to the wall, your daughter curled beside you, the carved figure tucked into the crook of her arm. You brush straw from her hair and kiss the crown of her head. She's grown. You hadn't noticed until today, but she reaches the window ledge now without help. Soon she'll want a corner of her own. You'll figure it out when the time comes. Your wife sits across from you, stitching a small tear in your sleeve. Her fingers move without looking. You think of all the repairs she's made, to clothes, to tools, to wounds and cracks in this little life. She's quieter these days, but stronger somehow, like the house itself. When the fire has burned down to coals and the wind has softened to a hush, you rise one last time and walk a final circle. You check the shutter. You test the roofline from the inside. You press a hand to the wall near the hearth, still warm. You don't speak. You don't need to. Everything that matters is already in the room. You settle into the bed, the straw whispering beneath you. The blanket is rough, but it holds the smell of rosemary from where it hung above the fire earlier. Your daughter murmurs something in her sleep. Your wife leans into your shoulder. You close your eyes, and in that moment, the house feels whole. Not finished, never that, but enough. It leaks, it creaks. It wakes you at odd hours with noises you can't name. It needs you, and you need it. But more than anything, it holds you. Tomorrow there may be another crack to patch, another beam to brace, another bundle of thatch to bind. But tonight, there is only breath, the sound of fire, the faint smell of earth and smoke, the memory of hands, yours and others, that made this space stand. And slowly, without effort, sleep finds you. Your body, warm beneath wool, the fire, low but not gone, the wind whispering somewhere beyond the door, and your house, this imperfect, beautiful thing, breathing gently around you. And now, the house is quiet. No hammers, no ropes, no axes in your hands, no shouting from the roof or laughter through the walls. Just stillness, safe, honest, earned. The fire in the hearth has dimmed to soft gold, glowing like a slow heartbeat. The last curl of smoke drifts upward into the dark thatch, where it disappears like a sigh. The walls around you, patched and whitewashed, carry the warmth of the day in their bones. The floor, pressed flat by 100 careful steps, gives a little under your shoulder. And the roof, that thick quilt of straw and sweat and song, holds off the world. There's a soft crack from the beams, a murmur of wind along the shutter. But none of it reaches you now, because you are wrapped in something deeper than blankets. You are wrapped in the labor of your own hands, in the shape of your own breath, in the memory of every hour you gave to this place, and every hour it will give back. Sleep now. You've done enough. The walls will hold, the roof will wait, and tomorrow, when the light finds the shutter, it will find you still here, at home, in the house you built.